My name is Tracy, and I am an overcomer. Um, I am originally from Brooksville, Mississippi. It's a very small town, about population of 1,400 people, and that's where I grew up with my mom, my dad, my grandmother, and my godmom. Those are the people that pretty much raised me. Um, Growing up, I had a pretty good childhood. Me and my mom didn't have the best relationship, but she was in my life, but not very active. So I was pretty much raised by my grandmother and my godmom and my dad. And I'm the baby of my family. I'm the only girl on my mom's side. So I grew up a little tough with the boys. They made sure that I was not soft, as they say. um, but for the most part, all my life I've been in church. My grandmother made sure that I was very active in church and things of that nature. I think I started, as I got older, probably around 14, I started drinking with my friends, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought that it was okay because everybody in my family drank, my friends drank, so it's kind of like, okay, this is just what everybody does. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm still a good kid. I got good grades. I go to school, but I like to party on the weekends with my friends, and I shouldn't have been partying at 14 and 15, but I did. And then in 2007, my older brother on my mom's side got killed in a car wreck, and that's kind of when things spiraled for me. My brother was my best friend. He was my confidant. He was my protector. So when he passed away, I felt like I lost myself, and I began to drink more. And I think probably the first 6 or 7 months after he passed, I didn't have a sober day. I drank all day, every day. I couldn't function without it. And about 8 months after my brother passed, there was a situation in my family with my parents. My mom had some infidelity issues, and my dad found out about it. So he, for lack of better words, took actions into his own hands, and he shot my mom, the guy that she was dating, and an off-duty cop. And I'm a daddy's girl. So all my life, all I knew was my daddy. That was my superhero. And in that moment, my life just fell apart. I didn't know what to do. My mom actually coded 3 times during her surgery. And the doctor even came out and told me there's nothing that he could do. And the only thing that he would suggest is that I pray. And I immediately started thinking, oh my God, my dad is gone, my mom is gone, I don't know what to do. And the whole time I'm not sober because I'm dealing with my alcoholism. And my boyfriend at the time, he started praying. And once I got to see my mom, the nurse came in and she was like, your stepdad is downstairs. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, oh, Mr. Hearn. I was like, no, that's my daddy. And she was like, he's downstairs. And I was like, what do you mean he's downstairs? Like, I'm thinking he's dead because they told me he got shot in the head. So immediately I'm thinking I'm about to lose both of my parents, but my dad survived. And he ended up having seizures. The bullet fractured when it hit his skull instead of penetrating his skull. So it wasn't life-threatening. He ended up recovering. But then we had to deal with the legal parts of what had happened. And my mom started recovering and getting better. She stayed in ICU for about a month before they put her in a regular room. So I dropped out of school and I started taking care of my mom. And I still had to be there for my dad because regardless of what he did, he was my dad. And I loved him. And even though I knew that what he did was wrong, my heart still loved my father. And I couldn't just turn my back on him because everybody else turned on him after that. So I felt like I was all he had. And I struggled for a long time. And once my mom went home from the hospital, my grandmother started taking care of her, so I moved to Texas because it was just too hard for me to be in Mississippi. It was just too much. So I wanted a fresh start. And I started getting a little better with my drinking, so I was like, okay, now's the time for me to move and try to get my life on track. Well, I moved here with my boyfriend at the time, which was my fiance during that time. And we started building a life together. Things was getting better. And I went into a really bad stage of depression. I ended up, when we moved here, I was pregnant. And about 5 months after we moved here, I had a car wreck. And I lost my baby due to the impact of the car wreck. And that's when I began to get angry with God. I felt like, why do you keep taking from me? Like I've lost my brother, I lost my dad in a sense, because he's locked up and he can't be there. And I'm like, you keep taking everything from me. So I started getting depressed, and I didn't want to pray anymore. I started drinking more. It got to a point to where when I woke up, I needed a drink. And I kind of knew I had a problem, but in the back of my mind, it was like, you ain't got a problem. You can hold down a job. You paying your bills. You doing everything you're supposed to do, technically, as an adult. But I couldn't function without it. I was spending just as much money on rent as I was spending on alcohol. So that kind of lets you know how much I was drinking in a week's time. The first time I got alcohol poisoning, I think I was probably about 24 years old. And I was kind of slowed down. I was like, okay, I need to change. But eventually I started back partying. I started back getting back into my routine. I'm like, I got this, whatever. But during that time, I started having issues in my relationship as he was battling his addictions and I was battling mine. And we started to fight more, and it kind of became physical with me being the aggressor. And he started back going to church and changing his life. But at that time, I was like, I don't believe in God no more. I don't want no parts of that. So he would literally get up on Sunday mornings and go to church, and I would stay home and drink. And he would come home and try to tell me about what he heard at church, and I was like, I don't want to hear that. Like, that's your God. That's not my God. I don't believe in that. I completely stopped believing altogether. And he ended up passing in a car wreck. So when that happened, I felt like, okay, the God that I don't believe in, I'm still mad because you're taking people away from me. So it just got worse. And like a year later, my dad died. And I was like, I think that's when I really hit a breaking point. Because at that time, it was like I didn't care about anything. I had lost everything. I lost my house because I lost my job because I was drinking. And I wasn't going to work and I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. So at this point, I'm living out of my car. I got family here, but I don't want to call them because they're just going to judge me. And so I chose to stay in my car. And my friend at the time was like, well, you can stay with me. But I started to drink more and more and more. And I ended up getting alcohol poisoning again. And my doctor said, if you keep doing this, you're gonna die. And in my mind, it was like, well, I ain't gonna die because God just want me to be here and be miserable. So he gonna keep taking people from me, and I'ma just keep staying here and going through this, and like that's why I'm here. But I'm still telling myself I don't believe in this God that I'm mad at. I'm so angry, but I don't believe. So it was one day about 7 years ago, I went to my niece's birthday party, and I met my current pastor, and we were just having a little regular conversation. And he started talking about God. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. I can't get away from these people. Like, it was like everywhere I went, somebody would talk to me about God, and I'm just like, oh, these Bible thumpers, y'all just gonna judge me, and y'all do what y'all do, and then y'all be all holy on Sunday morning, but y'all living foul too. So that's how I felt. And he had a real conversation with me, and he started to talk to me about some of the things I was dealing with. And this man never met me a day in my life, didn't know nothing about me. We knew mutual people, but we didn't know each other. And that kind of intrigued me, because I'm like, well, maybe he might be real. Because in the back of my mind, my grandmother took me to church 7 days a week. So I know about God. It's just I chose to not believe and not do what I wanted to do because I was so hurt. And he gave me a card. He was like, I just got a building, you should come visit. I was like, yeah, whatever. I took the card. I was so nonchalant about it. I think I lost the card before I even left the party. And the next day it was like 2 days later was the Sunday. And I was up early. I hadn't got up early on a Sunday morning in probably 7 years. And I couldn't sleep. And my sister Kim called me and was like, hey, can you give me a ride to church? Now, I could have took her to church in my pajamas, but for some reason, my body was like, get dressed. So I got dressed, and I got there, and I picked her up, and she was like, oh, you going? I was like, no, I'm just taking you. And I was like, you need a ride back too? She was like, yeah. I was like, well, I'll just sit outside till you finish. I ain't got nothing to do. I'll wait on you. And she was like, girl, come in here. So I went in, sat at the back of the church, of course. I'm sitting back there like this the whole time. Like, these people just, it is what it is. I'm here. And people started coming up to me and hugging me and speaking life to me. And the whole time I'm sitting there like this. Like, I don't want nobody to touch me. Like, please don't say nothing to me because I really don't want to be here. I'm just here and I don't know why I'm here. And it was after prayer, and the pastor was like, it's somebody else that's supposed to come up here. And before I knew it, I was walking down the aisle and going to the altar. And he started to pray for me. And women started to surround me and lay hands on me. And every woman that touched me spoke something into me that I was going through. And neither one of them knew me. They knew nothing about me, nothing. And it was in that moment I said, God is real. Because how can you tell me about what I'm hurting? Like, I'm hurting. I was angry, but I was so broken. And I didn't know what to do. And everybody like talked to me after church. And I was like, I'm not coming back. That next Sunday, I was back. And the Sunday after that, I was back. I kept coming back. And God started to break things. Like, I still was drinking. I had kind of slowed down a little bit. Because I was like, okay, I'm just not going to drink on Sundays. I would drink every other day because I'm going to church. And I think it was like that first Father's Day for me after my dad passed, and I didn't go to church. And so many people called me to check on me afterwards. And I was like, I don't know, they might be alright. Because I never really just had people just reach out to me. I've always been the person that reach out to other people. And it was in that moment when people started speaking life into me, and I started really getting back into my word. And I told God, I don't want to be like this no more. I don't want to crave a substance to make me happy. And the first thing I asked God for was my joy. And I said, God, if you just give me my joy back, I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll go to church. I'll stop drinking. Like, just take this away from me. And I want to wake up happy without having a drink. Like, I want to smile on my face without having to have a substance to make me feel better. And God started doing that for me. It's crazy because it started immediately. Because normally you'd be like, okay, you got to work. But I woke up the next day and I didn't want to drink. I literally quit cold turkey. I didn't want nothing. Everybody thought I was playing. Like, the people that knew me was like, girl, you just fake, whatever. This ain't gonna last long. You gonna stop. You just going to church right now. And those people were circumstantial friends. I didn't even want to be around them no more because we didn't have nothing in common. Like, we just drank together. So once I started doing something different, I didn't want to be around them. And God started to deliver me. And that's when he began to test me. Because me and my best friend that I was living with got into it about something so stupid. And we look back at it now and was like, that was dumb. But it was so stupid. But I didn't realize then that God was preparing me for something different. And I had to go in a different direction. And I had to get some time away from the people that I was around in order for him to elevate me and change me. And I ended up in a situation where I was going to be homeless again. And I said, I'm finna have to move. I told my church family, like, guys, I gotta move. I got stuff going on. I'm finna have to leave and go somewhere else because I don't have anywhere to stay. And people started saying, oh, you can stay here, you can do this, you can do that. And I was like, no, I can't do that because I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't want to be a burden on anybody. And I ended up moving in with my pastor and first lady. And I was like, I'm just going to be here 6 months. And I'm going to get out, I'm going to save my money, I'm going to move. And 2 months later, I lost my job. I'm like, God, what now? I was just like, are you serious? I'm trying to get my life right. And I lose my job. And it was during that time I had the most intimate time with God. And I needed that because he sat me down long enough to work on me, to change me. And I became a different person in that time. And 6 months turned into 2 years. But when God started restoring, it was like, it amazed me so much because I would literally ask God for something specific and he would give it to me. And I'm like, I was scared because I'm like, that ain't how God works. In my mind, that's not how God works, but that's exactly how God works. And he started restoring things, and he gave me a better job. He gave me a better place to live than where I was before I even became homeless. And it was mine. No, it wasn't nobody else's. And not one person could say that you wouldn't have this if it wasn't for me. Because the evidence behind how it happened was all God. I don't even know how it happened. I got a job I didn't even apply for. And that's how God was working in my life. And he delivered me. And I get so excited when I talk about it now because something that was meant to destroy me, it couldn't break me. And God has made me stronger. And I have become a generational curse breaker in my family. Like, I have changed so much. My family even are still surprised. And here we are 6 years since I've been back in church completely. And my family still is amazed at how much I have changed and how much I've grown. And I owe that all to God, because if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be who I am. And I wouldn't change it because it made me who I am, and I'm stronger. I have joy that is indescribable, and I don't need a substance to make me happy anymore because God makes me happy. And that's my story of me overcoming some of the things that I've gone through. And thank you for listening. Hope this touches somebody.